The email notification flashed across my phone screen during a crucial client meeting. "Congratulations on your home sale." My stomach dropped like I'd just plummeted down the first hill of a roller coaster. What home sale? I hadn't sold my home. I quickly excused myself, stepping into the hallway of Crosstech Solutions where I'd worked as a project manager for the past 7 years. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. With trembling fingers, I opened the email. There it was in black and white. Confirmation of the sale of 427 Lakeview Terrace. My home. Our home. Nathan's and mine. Except Nathan hadn't mentioned selling our house, not once during breakfast that morning when he kissed me goodbye, or last night when we discussed weekend plans to fix the garden trellis. There must be some mistake, I whispered, dialing Nathan's number. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. The knot in my stomach tightened as I scrolled through my contacts and called our real estate agent, Julian, who had helped us buy the house 3 years ago. "Julian, hi, it's Rebecca Martinez. I just got an email about my house being sold. This has to be a mistake." The pause on the other end lasted just long enough to tell me everything. "Rebecca, I assumed you knew. Nathan listed the property with our agency last month. The closing was finalized this morning. I'm sorry. I thought you were aware." The hallway seemed to tilt sideways. I braced myself against the wall, my breathing shallow. "Rebecca? Are you there? Who signed the papers, Julian?" My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Another pause. "Nathan did. His signature is on all the documents." The drive home felt surreal, like I was floating outside my body watching someone else navigate the familiar streets of Oak Ridge. As I turned onto Lakeview Terrace, my chest tightened. There, planted firmly in our front yard, was a "sold" sign, the word like a slap across my face. I pulled into the driveway and fumbled for my house keys, dropping them twice, before managing to get them into the lock. The key turned, but the door didn't open. I tried again with the same result. It was then I noticed the keypad for our smart home system had been replaced with a newer model. My code wouldn't work. "This cannot be happening," I muttered, trying to stay calm as I pulled out my phone. I clicked on our home security app. Surprisingly, it was still connected. Nathan must have forgotten to remove my access. Through the app, I could see inside our home, our formerly furnished home, now stripped bare of most furniture. In the middle of the living room floor sat my suitcase and a few boxes labeled Becca's Things in Nathan's hasty scrawl. My phone buzzed with a text message. "Nathan, hey babe, we need to talk when you get off work. Big opportunity came up. Had to move fast. Don't freak out when you get home. Keys under the ceramic frog. Don't freak out? Don't freak out?" He had sold our home without telling me and packed my things like I was a roommate being evicted. I found the spare key under the ceramic garden frog and let myself in. The house echoed with emptiness, my footsteps reverberating off the hardwood floors we had installed together last summer. I sank down beside my suitcase, opened it to find a jumble of clothes, mostly weekend wear, and barely any work clothes. No toiletries, not even my favorite coffee mug. My phone buzzed again. "Nathan. Should be home around 7. We'll celebrate." This is going to be great for us. Celebrate? My hands shook as I called the one person I could always count on. "Zoe, I need help," I managed before my voice cracked. "Nathan sold our house. Today. Without telling me." "He what?" Zoe's voice shot up an octave. "Where are you now?" "At the house. He packed some of my things. The furniture is gone. I broke off, a sob finally escaping. "I'm coming. Don't move. And Becca? Don't call him. Not yet." 20 minutes later, Zoe's sleek black Tesla pulled into the driveway. She wasn't alone. My brother Ryan was with her, his expression shifting from concern to anger as they entered the house and took in the scene. "This can't be legal," Ryan said, wrapping me in a bear hug. "It might be," Zoe said grimly, looking around the empty living room. "Depends on whose name is on the deed." The deed. I pulled away from Ryan and rushed to the kitchen where I kept a fireproof box of important documents in the back of the pantry. The box was gone. "Looking for this?" Ryan held up his phone. "I'm searching property records online right now. Oak Ridge County has a public database." We huddled around his phone, waiting as the page loaded. And there it was. 427 Lakeview Terrace, solely in the name of Nathan Martinez. "That's impossible," I whispered. "We bought this house together. I put in half the down payment." "Can you prove it?" Zoe asked gently. Could I? I thought back to 3 years ago when we'd found this place. Nathan had handled most of the paperwork while I was wrapping up a big project at work. I'd transferred my half of the down payment to our joint account, and he'd taken care of the rest. Had I ever actually seen the final deed? Had I been so trusting, so stupid? "Check the sale details," I said to Ryan, my shock beginning to give way to anger. Ryan tapped through several screens. "Sold to Skyline Ventures LLC for $625,000. $625? Zoe exclaimed. "Didn't you say you bought it for $580,000 3 years ago? In this neighborhood? That's way under market value." She was right. Houses on our street had been selling for over $800,000 recently. Why would Nathan sell for so little? My phone buzzed again. Another text from Nathan. "Don't forget we have dinner reservations at Harborview at 7. Wear that blue dress I like. Big celebration tonight." I stared at the message, something cold and hard forming in my chest. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was calculated. "I need to check something," I said, heading upstairs to what had been our home office. The room was emptied of Nathan's expensive ergonomic chair and standing desk, but an old filing cabinet remained in the corner. Nathan had always been meticulous about paperwork, something I'd once found endearing. Now I wondered what else that careful record-keeping hid. I pulled open the bottom drawer where we kept documents about the house, or where we used to keep them. The drawer was empty except for one folder marked Home Warranty. Nathan must have missed it in his haste. Inside was a copy of our initial mortgage application with both our names listed as co-applicants. "Found something," I called downstairs. As Zoe and Ryan came up, I noticed a blinking light coming from the closet. Our Wi-Fi router was still there, and next to it, our backup drive was still plugged in. Nathan had overlooked it completely. "That could be important," Ryan said, unplugging the drive and handing it to me. "What else should we grab while we're here?" I looked around at what remained of my home, trying to think practically despite the emotional typhoon swirling inside me. My jewelry box is gone. Most of my clothes, too. I headed to our bedroom, nearly empty now except for the bare mattress, and a few boxes. "Check this out," Zoe called from the bathroom. She was holding a receipt she'd found in the trash can. "Harborview restaurant reservation for tonight. Table for 3. 3? Who was the third person? As we gathered what was left of my belongings, my phone buzzed with an email notification. It was from First Meridian Bank. "Your joint account transfer authorization." I opened it immediately. Nathan had transferred $175,000 from our joint savings account to another account at a different bank. The transaction was pending authorization. It needed my approval through our dual authentication system. "He's emptying our accounts," I whispered, showing Zoe and Ryan the email. "Don't approve it," Zoe said firmly. "In fact, we need to move. Quickly. Do you have accounts in just your name?" I nodded. "My personal checking account from before we were married, and my investment account." "Good. We need to talk to someone who understands finance and law. Right now." Ryan checked his watch. "It's 4:30. We still have time to get to a bank before—" It closes. As we headed downstairs, I paused at the family photo wall, the only thing Nathan hadn't cleared out yet. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Among the photos was one of us on our honeymoon in Bali, smiling and sun-kissed. I carefully took it off the wall and removed the backing. "What are you doing?" Ryan asked. "Nathan likes to hide things in plain sight," I explained, pulling out a small USB drive that had been taped behind the photo. "He thinks he's clever." Zoe raised an eyebrow. "And you let him think that?" A small, grim smile crossed my face. "Always best to let people underestimate you." We left the house that was no longer mine, and I locked the door behind us out of habit. As I placed the key under the ceramic frog, I made a silent promise to myself. This wasn't over. In Zoe's car, I finally allowed myself to check my work, emails. Among them was one from my boss marked Confidential Crosstech IPO Update. 6 months ago, as one of the company's senior employees, I'd been given the opportunity to buy shares before our initial public offering. I'd invested nearly every penny of my personal savings, keeping it quiet even from Nathan, who had always been dismissive of my corporate job. The IPO was scheduled to go public next week. Nathan had no idea I was about to become a millionaire. In my own right. "Instead of the bank, take me to see Elliot Reeves," I told Zoe, referring to an attorney friend who specialized in family law. "I need to know exactly where I stand legally." As we drove, Ryan made a startling discovery on his phone. "Becca, look at this. Skyline Ventures LLC was just registered 3 weeks ago, and guess who the primary stakeholders are? Nathan Martinez and Derek Phillips." Derek Phillips, Nathan's business associate and self-proclaimed best friend. The pieces were starting to fit together. "There's more," Ryan continued, scrolling through records. "They've purchased 4 other properties in the last month, all under market value. How do you even have access to all this?" Zoe asked, glancing at Ryan in the rearview mirror. Ryan shrugged. "I work in cybersecurity, remember? Public records are easy." My phone buzzed again. Another text from Nathan. "Where are you? Don't be late for dinner. This is important." I switched my phone to silent and stared out the window as familiar streets passed by. 7 years of marriage, and I'd never truly known the man I'd shared my life with. But then again, maybe he'd never truly known me either. Elliot's office was located in a renovated Victorian in the financial district. Despite it being nearly closing time, his assistant showed us right in when I explained it was an emergency. Elliot looked up from his desk, his expression shifting from professional greeting to concern as he took in my tear-stained face and the determined set of Zoe and Ryan's jaws. "Rebecca, what's happened?" I laid it all out. The surprise home sale, the emptied house, the funds transfer attempt, everything. Elliot listened without interrupting, making occasional notes. "First things first," he said when I finished. "We need to secure your assets. Ryan, can you help Rebecca transfer any remaining joint funds to her personal account? It's not ideal legally, but given the circumstances and his attempted transfer, we can justify it as a protective measure." Ryan nodded, already pulling out his laptop. "Zoe, I need you to document everything in the house. What's missing, what's left, take photos and videos. Evidence is critical here." "Already started," Zoe confirmed, showing him the photos she'd taken on her phone. Elliot turned back to me. "Now, Rebecca, I need to see any documentation you have showing your contribution to the house purchase." I pulled out my phone, accessed my banking app, and showed him the transfer I'd made to our joint account 3 years ago. $87,000, exactly half of our down payment. "Good," Elliot said. "And the USB drive you mentioned?" I handed it over and he inserted it into his computer. The drive contained Nathan's personal financial records, tax returns, business plans, and emails that he thought were private. He never changed his passwords, I explained. Birthday with exclamation point. For everything. Elliot's eyebrows rose as he scanned the documents. Rebecca, did you know Nathan was planning to run for city council? I blinked in surprise. What? No. He turned his monitor so I could see. There it was. A campaign strategy document dated 2 months ago. Nathan Martinez for city council, with a campaign fund already established. That explains the property sales, Ryan said, looking up from his laptop. Quick cash for campaign funds. But why sell our home? I asked. We weren't struggling financially. Elliot opened another file, an email exchange between Nathan and Derek. Perfect timing with Becca away at that conference next month, Nathan had written. We'll be closed and moved before she gets back. The house is only in my name anyway. Checked with Julian to confirm. Clean break, fresh start for the campaign. Single men don't get elected. Divorced men with sad stories do. I sat back, the air leaving my lungs. Nathan was planning to divorce me? Had been planning it for months? And he thought I'd be away at a conference next month. A conference I'd decided last week not to attend, though I hadn't told him yet. He was going to blindside me completely, I whispered. Let me come home from a business trip to find my house sold and my marriage over. Not if we blindside him first, Zoe said, a dangerous gleam in her eye. Ryan looked up from his computer. Transfers complete. I've moved everything except $5,000 from your joint accounts to your personal account. Can he reverse that? I asked Elliot. He can try, but with the evidence of his own attempted transfer and the unauthorized home sale, we have solid grounds to defend it. My phone buzzed again. Nathan. Seriously, Becca, where are you? Derek and his wife are meeting us at Harborview in an hour. Big news to share. I showed the message to the others. He was going to tell me at dinner, with an audience to keep me from making a scene. What do you want to do? Elliot asked. We have several legal options, but the immediate question is, do you respond or not? I thought about it for a moment. I'll go to dinner, I said finally. What? Zoe and Ryan exclaimed in unison. I'll go to dinner and hear what he has to say. But first, I need to make a quick trip to the bank. Elliot checked his watch. First Meridian closes in 20 minutes. If we hurry... Not First Meridian, I said, a plan forming in my mind. Oak Ridge Community Credit Union. There's something there I need to check. Half an hour later, I sat in the small office of Diana Foster, the credit union manager, staring at a document I'd nearly forgotten about. Yes, Ms. Martinez, the property is still in your name, Diana confirmed. You purchased it outright 3 months ago. The property in question was a modest farmhouse on the outskirts of town. I'd discovered it during a Sunday drive and fallen. In love with its wraparound porch and apple orchard. On impulse, I'd used my year-end bonus to make an offer, planning to surprise Nathan with it as a weekend getaway. But Nathan had been so focused on his business ventures that I'd put off telling him, eventually deciding to use it as an anniversary surprise instead. With everything that had happened, I'd nearly forgotten about it. You own another house? Ryan's eyes widened as we sat in Zoe's living room later that evening. I had decided to skip Nathan's dinner entirely, letting him wait at Harborview Restaurant while I figured out my next move. It's not just any house, I explained, pulling up photos on my phone. It's a 3-acre property with a renovated farmhouse and a small orchard. I bought it as an investment, thinking maybe we could turn it into a weekend retreat or even retire there someday. Zoe leaned over to look at the photos. It's beautiful, Becca, but I still don't understand why you kept it a secret from Nathan. I sighed, scrolling through images of wide plank floors and exposed beam ceilings. At first, it was going to be a surprise, but then, I don't know. Something told me to keep it to myself. Nathan had been acting distant for months, spending more time with Derek and less time at home. When I'd bring up our future, he'd change the subject. Good instinct, Ryan muttered, still working on his laptop. He'd been combing through Nathan's emails from the USB drive, creating a timeline of events. My phone had been buzzing incessantly for the past hour with texts and calls from Nathan. I'd silenced it, not ready to confront him yet. Now, I checked. The messages. Nathan, where are you? We're waiting. Nathan, you're embarrassing me. Derek and Vanessa are here. Nathan, answer your phone, Becca. This is childish. Nathan, fine. If you're not going to be supportive of our future, that says everything. The last message had come in just minutes ago. I'm coming home. We need to talk. Now. He doesn't know, I said quietly. Doesn't know what? Zoe asked. That we know the house is sold. He thinks I'm just being difficult about missing dinner. I stood up, suddenly feeling caged. He's heading to the house now, expecting to find me there. Ryan checked the surveillance app on my phone. The house is empty. No one's there yet. We need backup, Zoe decided, reaching for her phone. I'm calling Gabby. If anyone can make sense of this financial mess, it's her. Gabriella Patel was a financial advisor who had helped Zoe restructure her business last year. She was also one of the sharpest minds I knew when it came to following money trails. While Zoe made the call, Ryan continued his digital excavation. Becca, look at this, he said, turning his laptop toward me. 3 weeks ago, Nathan emailed Julian asking for the documentation we discussed. Julian sent over paperwork showing sole ownership of the house. I peered at the screen. But how? We both signed the mortgage papers. Yes, but apparently not the deed, Ryan said grimly. And there's more. The funds from the house sale didn't go to your joint account. They went directly to an LLC account that Nathan opened with Derek. A chill ran down my spine. So, they've been planning this for a while. At least 3 months, based on these emails, Ryan confirmed. And get this, Skyline Ventures isn't just buying random properties. They're specifically targeting homes in the Oak Meadows district. That caught my attention. Oak Meadows was a historic neighborhood where zoning laws had recently changed, allowing for commercial development. Nathan and Derek had always talked about wanting to break into the short-term rental market. Was that what this was about? My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Rebecca, it's Vanessa Phillips. We need to talk. It's important. Nathan doesn't know I'm contacting you. Vanessa? Derek's wife? We'd met at company functions but weren't close. What could she possibly want to tell me? Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. Zoe peeked through the peephole and then let in a petite woman with an armful of file folders. Gabriella Patel, looking like she'd come straight from her office. So your husband sold your house without telling you? Gabby said in lieu of a greeting, setting her files down on Zoe's coffee table. Let's see what we're working with. For the next hour, Gabby pored over bank statements, property records, and emails, building a financial picture of what Nathan and Derek had been doing. Meanwhile, I messaged Vanessa back, arranging to meet her the following morning at Riverfront Coffee, away from Nathan and Derek's usual haunts. Your husband's been busy? Gabby said finally, pushing her tortoiseshell glasses up on her nose. In the past 3 months, he's moved approximately $320,000 through various accounts, including your joint savings. Some went to Skyline Ventures, some to another LLC called Meridian Holdings, and some to a PAC, a political action committee. The campaign fund, I murmured, remembering the documents Elliot had found. Exactly. And here's where it gets interesting. Gabby pointed to a spreadsheet she'd created. The properties Skyline has been purchasing, they form a perfect arc around Oak Ridge Community College. And the college just announced a major expansion last month. Ryan whistled low. Inside information? Property values in that area will skyrocket. But that doesn't explain why he sold our house, I said, still trying to make sense of Nathan's betrayal. We weren't hurting for money. Gabby flipped to another page. According to this campaign strategy document, Nathan's running on a platform of family values and fiscal responsibility. But look here. She pointed to a note in the margin. Downsize personal residence to show commitment to financial prudence. He sold our home as a campaign prop? The idea was so absurd I almost laughed. To look more relatable to voters? That, and to free up capital for these other investments, Gabby confirmed. The problem is, he did it without your knowledge or consent, which raises serious legal issues. My phone buzzed again. Nathan, where the hell are you? I'm at the house. Your car's gone. Call me now. I showed the message to the others. Should I respond? Not yet, Ryan advised. Let him sweat a little more. Meanwhile, I've found something else. He turned his laptop around to show us a series of text messages he'd recovered from the backup drive. The exchanges were between Nathan and someone saved in his contacts as campaign advisor. Need to clean. Up your image before announcing, the advisor had written. Family man, but not flashy. The McMansion doesn't play well with middle-class voters, and we need to address the potential scandal. Nathan had replied, working on downsizing the house. As for the other matter, it will be handled discreetly. What other matter? I wondered aloud. What potential scandal? My question hung in the air, unanswered but ominous. Whatever Nathan was hiding, it went beyond real estate deals and political ambitions. You need to secure everything, Gabby said firmly. Not just your money, but any documentation, photos, digital records, anything that might disappear if Nathan realizes you're onto him. I already moved most of the money, I said, and we have the USB drive. What about your personal items from the house? Zoe asked. Your jewelry, important documents, family heirlooms? I thought of the hastily packed suitcase. Most of it's probably still there, unless Nathan already moved it to storage. But I can't go back tonight. He's there waiting for me. You don't have to, Ryan said, showing me the home security app. Through the camera feed, we could see Nathan pacing the living room, phone in hand, looking increasingly agitated. We'll wait until he leaves, then go back and get what you need. My phone buzzed yet again. Nathan had escalated to calling Zoe now. Should I answer? Zoe asked, holding up her ringing phone. I nodded. Put it on speaker. Zoe accepted the call. Hello? Zoe, it's Nathan. Is Becca with you? His voice sounded strained, tight with barely controlled anger. Why would you think that? Zoe replied coolly. Cut the crap. Her car's not at home, she's not answering her phone, and she missed an important dinner. If she's there, put her on. I'm here, I said, signaling Zoe to keep the phone on speaker. What do you want, Nathan? What do I want? His voice rose. I want my wife to act like an adult instead of throwing a tantrum and disappearing. We had dinner plans, important dinner plans, and you just didn't show up. Kind of like how you just didn't tell me you sold our house? I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. There was a pause on the other end. When Nathan spoke again, his tone had changed, becoming placating. Honey, I left you a note. I told you we'd talk about it tonight. This is a huge opportunity for us, for our future. If you'd just come to dinner, you'd understand. Understand what? That you sold the home we built together without even discussing it with me? That you packed up my life in a suitcase and left it on the floor? You're overreacting. Am I? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you made a unilateral decision about our biggest shared asset and didn't bother to include me in the conversation. The market was hot. The opportunity came up suddenly. Stop lying, Nathan, I said, surprised by how calm I sounded. The house listing was posted 3 weeks ago. Julian confirmed it. Another pause, longer this time. You talked to Julian? Nathan's voice had dropped, a dangerous edge to it now. I talked to a lot of people today. Interesting what you learn when you start asking questions. Rebecca, listen to me, Nathan said, his voice regaining its smooth, persuasive quality. Come home and I'll explain everything. This is all part of a bigger plan for us, a better future, I can't come home, Nathan. You sold it, remember? Don't be dramatic. We'll stay at the Lakeside Suites until we close on the new place. I've already booked us a room. New place? This was the first I'd heard of it. What new place? The condo downtown, close to City Hall. It's perfect for us at this stage of our lives. More practical. You'll love it once you see it. I caught Zoe's eye and she mouthed, City Hall, confirming our suspicions about his political aspirations. I'm staying with Zoe tonight, I said finally. I need time to process all this. Fine, Nathan snapped, his conciliatory tone vanishing. But this tantrum ends tomorrow. I need you at the property viewing at 10 a.m. The realtor is only available. Then, I have work tomorrow. Call in sick. This is more important than your job. There it was. The dismissive attitude toward my career that had become increasingly common in our marriage. As if my work was just a hobby, not the professional life I'd spent years building. I'll think about it, I said noncommittally. Rebecca. Good night, Nathan. I nodded to Zoe, who ended the call. For a moment, none of us spoke. Then Ryan cleared his throat. He's leaving the house, he said, showing us the security feed. Nathan was stalking out the front door, slamming it behind him. Now's our chance, Zoe said, grabbing her car keys. Let's go get your things before he comes back. 20 minutes later, we pulled up to the house, parking a block away just in case. Ryan stayed in the car as lookout while Zoe and I quickly made our way inside. The house felt different now, no longer my home, but a shell of what had been. Working methodically, I gathered important items Nathan had overlooked. My grandmother's silver locket hidden in a jewelry box compartment, backup drives with years of photos, important paperwork from my home office, and a small fireproof safe containing my passport and birth certificate. Check this out, Zoe called from the kitchen. She was holding a stack of mail that had been shoved into a drawer. Among the envelopes was a notice from the City Planning Commission addressed to Nathan, dated 6 weeks ago. Regarding your inquiry about zoning changes in the Oak Meadows district, Zoe read aloud. The council will vote on the proposed amendments next month. As requested, this information is being kept confidential until the public announcement. I took the letter, scanning it quickly. He had inside information about the zoning changes. That's why they're buying up those properties. They'll be worth triple once the changes go through. Isn't that illegal? Zoe asked. Using non-public information for financial gain? It's certainly unethical, especially if Nathan is planning to run for office, I replied, tucking the letter into my bag. We need to show this to Elliot. Upstairs, the master bedroom had been stripped of most furniture, but Nathan had missed a few things in his haste. In the back of the closet, I found a locked metal box I'd never seen before. It was small, about the size of a shoebox with a simple key lock. Can you open this? I asked Zoe, who had a knack for locks thanks to a misspent youth she rarely talked about. Zoe examined the box. Give me a hairpin in 2 minutes. Sure enough, the lock clicked open under Zoe's skilled fingers. Inside were documents I'd never seen, a lease agreement for an apartment in the Arts District, dating back 8 months, and a stack of receipts from restaurants, hotels, and jewelry stores. One receipt in particular caught my eye. A diamond pendant from Hartman's Fine Jewelry, purchased 3 weeks ago, right around the time Nathan listed our house. He has another apartment? Zoe whispered, looking at the lease. For 8 months? My stomach churned as the pieces fell into place. The late nights at the office, the business trips that seemed to multiply, the growing emotional distance between us. Nathan hadn't just been planning a political campaign behind my back. He'd been living a double life. We need to go, I said, stuffing everything back into the box. Now. As we hurried downstairs, headlights swept across the front window. A car was pulling into the driveway. Nathan? Zoe asked, freezing in place. I checked the security app on my phone. No, it's Derek's car. And there's a woman with him, but it's not Vanessa. We watched through the app as Derek helped a young woman out of the passenger seat. She was perhaps in her mid-20s, professionally dressed but with a distinctly more glamorous style than was typical in Oak Ridge. Derek guided her to the front door, his hand resting intimately on the small of her back. "That's not his wife," Zoe whispered unnecessarily. "No, it's not," I agreed, my mind racing. "Quick, out the back door." We slipped out through the kitchen, just as we heard keys in the front lock. Racing across the backyard, we made it to the side gate that led to the next street over. Ryan was waiting there, having moved the car when he spotted Derek arriving. "Who was that with Derek?" he asked as we piled into the car. "Not his wife," I said grimly, "which might explain why Vanessa wants to meet with me tomorrow." Back at Zoe's apartment, we spread out our findings. The metal box had yielded more than just the lease agreement and receipts. There were also photographs of Nathan with different women at various events, none of which I'd attended or even heard about. "This is getting messier by the minute," Gabi observed, having returned after putting her kids to bed. "It's not just about real estate anymore." "It never was," I said quietly, finally seeing the full picture. "Nathan's been planning an exit strategy for months, from our marriage, from our home, from the life we built. The house sale was just the final step." "But why now?" Ryan asked. "Why the sudden rush?" "The campaign," Gabi suggested. "If he's announcing soon, he needs everything in place. The right image, the right address, maybe even the right partner." The implication hung in the air. Was Nathan planning to replace me entirely for his political debut? "Look at this," Zoe said, examining the lease agreement more closely. "The apartment is leased to a shell company, Meridian Holdings, the same one Gabi found in the financial records." "He's covering his tracks," Ryan observed, making sure nothing leads directly back to him. My phone buzzed with a text from Elliot. "Need to meet first thing tomorrow. Have information about Skyline Ventures you need to see." My office, 7:30. I responded affirmatively, then set my phone aside. It was past midnight now, and exhaustion was setting in. The adrenaline that had carried me through this shocking day was fading, leaving behind a bone-deep weariness. "You should try to get some sleep," Zoe said gently, seeing my fatigue. "Tomorrow's going to be another long day." She was right. Between meeting Elliot at 7:30, Vanessa at 9:00, and somehow dealing with Nathan's demand that I attend the condo viewing at 10:00, I had a full morning ahead. "Here," Zoe said, handing me a glass of water and a flannel pajama set. "The guest room is all yours. And Becca, we're going to figure this out. Nathan may think he's thought of everything, but he clearly underestimated who he's dealing with." I managed a small smile, grateful for my friend's unwavering support. He always did. As I settled into Zoe's comfortable guest room, my phone lit up with one final text from Nathan. "Things will make sense tomorrow, I promise. Don't make decisions when you're emotional. Remember, we're a team." Team. The word that had once filled me with such warmth now left me cold. Nathan and I hadn't been a team for months, maybe longer. He'd been playing a game with rules I didn't know, on a field I couldn't see. But that was about to change. Morning arrived too quickly, the pale autumn light filtering through Zoe's guest room curtains as my alarm chimed at 6 a.m. I'd slept fitfully, dreaming of empty houses and strangers living in rooms that had once been mine. After a quick shower, I dressed in clothes Zoe had lent me. A crisp button-down and tailored slacks that were slightly too long but would work for the day ahead. Ryan had already left for his early morning cybersecurity job, but had texted that he'd meet us at Elliot's office. Zoe handed me a travel mug of coffee as I gathered my things. "Ready for this?" "As I'll ever be," I replied, checking my phone. No more messages from Nathan, but there was one from my coworker Mia, responding to the email I'd sent last night explaining I needed a personal day. "Take all the time you need," Mia had written. "Covered your meeting with Jackson Tech. Call if you need anything. Another text arrived as we headed to the car, this one from Vanessa Phillips, confirming our 9 a.m. meeting at Riverfront Coffee. What could Derek's wife possibly want to tell me? And was it connected to the woman we'd seen with Derek at the house last night? Elliot's office was already bustling when we arrived at 7:30 a.m. His assistant showed us straight into a conference room where Ryan and Gabby were waiting, along with Elliot himself, looking like he'd been up all night. "Thanks for coming in so early," Elliot said, handing me a folder. "I spent some time digging into Skyline Ventures after you left yesterday. What they're doing isn't just unethical, it may be illegal." I opened the folder to find documents detailing the recent property purchases in Oak Meadows, along with maps showing their locations. "Notice anything?" Elliot asked, spreading out a larger version of the map on the conference table. The properties formed a perfect semicircle around Oak Ridge Community College. "They're buying up all the land around the college expansion," I observed. "Exactly. And look at the sale prices," Elliot pointed to a spreadsheet. "In every case, they've purchased well below market value." "How is that possible in this market?" Zoe asked. "People are in bidding wars for houses in Oak Meadows." Elliot's expression was grim. "That's the concerning part. We've found evidence suggesting they're using pressure tactics, targeting homeowners, facing foreclosure, medical debt, or other financial difficulties. In some cases, they've spread rumors about property values dropping to create panic selling." "That sounds like fraud," Ryan said. "It is," Elliot confirmed. "And there's more. The zoning changes that will make these properties so valuable." Nathan got advance notice through his connection with Councilman Harrington, who, coincidentally, is the one who's been encouraging Nathan to run for office. "Insider trading, essentially, but with real estate," Gabby observed. "And a clear conflict of interest if Nathan's planning to join the city council," Elliot added. "But here's what you really need to see." He pulled out another document, a draft campaign announcement bearing Nathan's name and photo. The headline read, "Nathan Martinez, a fresh start for Oak Ridge." The announcement outlined Nathan's platform: fiscal, responsibility, family values, and neighborhood revitalization, with particular emphasis on the Oak Meadows district. According to the press release, candidate Martinez planned to transform the area into a vibrant hub for students and young professionals. "He's planning to announce next week," Elliot said, "right after the zoning changes become public." The Tao. Timing was no coincidence. Nathan would position himself as the visionary who saw the potential in the neglected neighborhood, conveniently after he and Derek had bought up key properties at bargain prices. "Wait," I said, noticing something. In the press release. "This mentions Nathan and his fiancée will make their home in the revitalized district." "Fiancé?" Elliot exchanged glances with Ryan. "We were getting to that. Ryan found something in the emails that you should see." Ryan pulled up an email exchange on his laptop. Messages between Nathan and Derek from just 2 weeks ago. "Everything set." "With Amanda?" Derek had written. Nathan's reply sent ice through my veins. "Ring purchased. She'll move into the downtown condo after the announcement. Divorce papers being prepared. Becca will be out of the picture before the campaign launches." There it was in black and white, Nathan's complete betrayal laid bare. Not just selling our house without telling me, not just planning a political career behind my back, but actively planning to replace me with someone named Amanda, presumably the recipient of the diamond pendant from Hartman's jewelry. "I'm sorry, Rebecca," Elliot said quietly. "I know this is a lot to take in." "Actually, it explains a lot," I said, surprised by how calm I felt. The shock had burned away, leaving a clear, cold anger in its place. Nathan's been laying groundwork for months. The separate apartment, the secret bank accounts, the house sale. It was all leading to this. "The question is, what do you want to do about it?" Elliot asked. I glanced at the clock. It was 8:15 a.m., time to head to my meeting with Vanessa. if I was going to make it by 9 around. First, I want to hear what Vanessa Phillips has to say, I decided. Then I want to stop Nathan from destroying more lives, including his own. How? Zoe asked. A plan was forming in my mind, pieces clicking into place like a complex puzzle. By giving him exactly what he thinks he wants, right before I take it all away. Riverfront Coffee was buzzing with morning customers when I arrived at 8:55 a.m. Vanessa was already there, seated at a corner table away from the windows, nervously twisting her wedding ring. She looked different from the confident socialite I remembered from company parties. Her usual perfect makeup couldn't quite hide the shadows under her eyes. "Rebecca," she said, standing as I approached, "thank you for meeting me." "Vanessa," I acknowledged, taking the seat across from her. "What's this about?" She glanced around, making sure no one was within earshot. "I know about the properties," she said in a low voice. "About Skyline Ventures, the zoning changes, all of it. Derek thinks I'm in the dark, but I've known for weeks." "How?" I asked, genuinely curious. "I'm a real estate attorney, remember? When properties in Oak Meadows started selling for 30% below market value, people noticed. I pulled the records and found Skyline Ventures listed as the buyer on all of them. It wasn't hard to connect the dots back to Derek and Nathan." She pulled a folder from her designer handbag and slid it across the table. "What you don't know is that they've done this before. 3 years ago in Westlake. They bought properties, flipped them after zoning changes, and made millions. But people got hurt in the process. Small businesses displaced, families forced, out of homes they'd lived in for generations." I opened the folder to find newspaper clippings, property records, and court documents, all relating to a development controversy in Westlake, a town about 40 miles away. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked, though I already suspected the answer. Vanessa's perfectly manicured hands trembled slightly as she reached for her coffee. "Because history is repeating itself, and I can't be complicit again. And because I know about Amanda." There it was, the name from Nathan's emails. "Who is she?" "She works for Councilman Harrington. She's been involved with both Derek and Nathan for months. The woman you saw with Derek last night? That wasn't Amanda. That was Elise, another part of their circle." Vanessa's voice was bitter. "There are several women they rotate through those apartments. I've known about Derek's affairs for years, but I looked the other way because our prenup favors him if I file for divorce. But this, using these women as props for their business and political ambitions, it's gone too far." My head was spinning. "Nathan's planning to leave me for Amanda." "Yes. After the campaign announcement, she's being groomed as the perfect political wife. Young, photogenic, connected to the right people." Vanessa took a deep breath. "I'm sorry, Rebecca. I should have warned you sooner." "Why now?" I asked. "Why come forward at this point?" Vanessa met my eyes directly for the first time. "Because they're about to destroy an entire neighborhood to fuel their ambitions. Because I found evidence that they bribed a planning commission member to fast-track the zoning changes. And because—" her voice caught slightly. "Because I'm pregnant, and I refuse to raise my child in the shadow of Derek's corruption." The revelation hung between us, weighty and significant. Vanessa Phillips wasn't just a scorned wife seeking revenge. She was a mother-to-be fighting for her future. "What do you want from me?" I asked carefully. "An alliance," Vanessa replied. "You have evidence of Nathan's deception. I have evidence of their past schemes and the bribery. Together, we might be able to stop them before they announce the campaign and destroy more lives." I checked my watch. It was 9:30 a.m. Nathan would be expecting me at the condo viewing in 30 minutes. "I need to think about this," I said, gathering the folder. "Can I keep these documents?" Vanessa nodded. "I have copies. And Rebecca, be careful." When I confronted Derek last month, he didn't just deny everything, he threatened to ruin me professionally if I interfered. I appreciate the warning, I said, standing to leave. And Vanessa? Congratulations on your pregnancy. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. Thank you. Whatever you decide, I'll understand. As I walked out of Riverfront Coffee, my phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. Meeting you at the condo. 10 a.m. sharp, corner of Maple and 3rd. Don't be late. I had a decision to make. Confront Nathan now with everything I'd learned, or play along while building my case. The second option would give me more time to gather evidence, but could I really face him, knowing what I now knew? My phone rang, Elliot calling. Rebecca, where are you? Just finished meeting with Vanessa Phillips, heading to see Nathan. Now. Before you do, there's something else you should know. We found connections between Skyline Ventures and city officials, suspicious payments that look a lot like bribes. This goes beyond Nathan and Derek. Vanessa mentioned something. Similar, I said, quickening my pace toward my car. She has documentation from their previous scheme in Westlake. This is bigger than we thought, Elliot said gravely. If you're going to meet Nathan, you need to be very careful what you say. We don't know how far they'll go to protect themselves. I understand, I assured him. I'll stick to the plan. Act like I'm just upset about the house, nothing more. Good. And Rebecca? We've moved your funds from your personal account to a new one at a different bank, just to be safe. The information is in your email. Thank you, Elliot. As I hung up, another text came through, this one from Ryan. Found something big in Nathan's emails. Call ASAP. But there was no time. It was 9:50 a.m., and I needed to decide my next move. After a moment's hesitation, I typed a response to Nathan. On my way. Whatever Nathan was planning, whatever web of deception he'd woven, I was about to walk. Straight into it, eyes wide open, for perhaps the first time in our marriage. The downtown condo was exactly what I'd expected. Sleek, modern, and impersonal. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered impressive views of Oak Ridge's modest skyline, while the open-concept layout screamed bachelor pad more than family home. Nathan stood in the center of the living room, hands in his pockets, watching anxiously, as I took in the space. What do you think? He asked, his voice carefully modulated to sound enthusiastic yet casual. 12-foot ceilings, smart home system already installed, and the building has a gym and rooftop pool. I ran my hand along the quartz countertop in the kitchen, buying time to compose myself. It's very different from our house. That's the point, Nathan said, coming to stand beside me. We're starting fresh. New chapter. This location puts us right in the heart of everything. By everything? Do you mean City Hall? I asked, unable to keep a slight edge from my voice. Nathan's smile faltered momentarily, but he recovered quickly. Among other things. Listen, Becca, I know the house sale was a shock. I should have handled it differently, but this move makes sense for us now. For us? Or for your campaign? His eyes widened slightly, the first genuine reaction I'd seen. How did you find out? It wasn't hard, Nathan. Once I started asking questions, people were surprisingly forthcoming. I moved away from him toward the windows. When were you planning to tell me? Before or after the announcement next week? Nathan loosened his tie, buying time. I wanted everything to be perfect first. The right home, the right narrative. Politics is all about timing, Becca. And what about our marriage? Is that also about timing? He approached cautiously, as if I were a wild animal that might bolt. This is a huge opportunity for both of us. Think about it. You'd make an amazing councilman's wife. Your community, involvement, your corporate background. We're the perfect package. The perfect package. Like we were a product to be marketed, not two people who had once promised to love each other forever. And what about the properties in Oak Meadows? Are Those part of the perfect package too? Nathan's expression hardened. You've been busy. So have you. Skyline Ventures has acquired, 7 properties now? All suspiciously below market value. All conveniently located around the college expansion? It's just business, Rebecca. Smart investing. Is bribing city officials also just business? I asked quietly. Nathan's face drained of color. Who have you been talking to? Does it matter? The truth has a way of coming out, Nathan, especially when people start paying attention. He gripped my arm too tightly to be affectionate. You need to be very careful about what you're implying. There are powerful people involved in these deals. People like Councilman Harrington? I pulled away from his grasp. Or people like Amanda. The name hit him like a physical blow. He took a step back, eyes darting to the door as if checking escape routes. Who told you about Amanda? You did, I said simply. Just not with words. The late nights, the secret apartment, the diamond pendant from Hartman's that definitely wasn't for me. You left breadcrumbs everywhere, Nathan. I just never thought to look until now. For a moment, he seemed genuinely rattled. Then, like a mask sliding back into place, his expression smoothed into the practiced calm I'd seen him use in business negotiations. It's complicated, Becca. The situation with Amanda, it's not what you think. Really? Because I think you're planning to divorce me and replace me with a more politically advantageous partner right after your campaign announcement. Am I wrong? Nathan ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, messing it up in a way that almost made him look like the man I'd fallen in love with years ago. Not entirely. At least he wasn't denying it anymore. That was something. But you don't understand the pressure I'm under, he continued. Harrington has specific ideas about the kind of candidate who can win in this district. The right image, the right connections. Amanda works in his office. She knows how the game is played. And I don't, I finished for him. Because you never gave me the chance. You made all these decisions without me, Nathan. You decided our marriage wasn't viable, our home wasn't suitable, my contribution wasn't valuable. You decided everything. I was trying to protect you. From what? The truth? Or from the opportunity to make my own choices? Nathan checked his watch, a nervous tick I recognized from countless dinner parties when he was ready to leave but too polite to say so. The realtor will be here any minute to finalize the paperwork. This isn't the time or place for this conversation. When is the right time, Nathan? After you've transferred all our assets? After you've signed away our marriage like you signed? Away our house? His phone buzzed in his pocket. He glanced at it, then toward the door. Derek's downstairs with the contracts. I need to let him up. By all means, I said, gesturing toward the door. Don't let me stop the Nathan and Derek show from its regularly scheduled programming. Nathan hesitated, clearly torn between dealing with me and moving forward with his plans. We can talk about this tonight, I promise. But right now, I need you to keep what you know to yourself. There's too much at stake. For whom? I asked. You? Derek? Councilman Harrington? What about the families you're pushing out of Oak Meadows? What's at stake for them? A flicker of genuine discomfort crossed Nathan's face, the first indication that perhaps he wasn't entirely comfortable with all aspects of the scheme. But before he could respond, the doorbell rang. That's Derek, Nathan said unnecessarily. Please, Becca, just be discreet. I nodded non-committally as Nathan went to answer the door. A moment later, Derek Phillips strode into the condo with the confident air of someone accustomed to owning every room he entered. Behind him was Julian Watkins, the real estate agent, who had helped us buy our house 3 years ago, and who had apparently helped Nathan sell it behind my back. Rebecca! Derek's surprise at seeing me seemed genuine. Nathan didn't mention you'd be joining us. Last-minute change of plan, Nathan said smoothly, shooting me a warning glance. Rebecca wanted to see the condo before we finalized everything. Julian looked distinctly uncomfortable. avoiding my gaze as he set his briefcase on the kitchen island. I've brought the purchase agreement for the condo and the final settlement papers for your house sale, he said to Nathan. Everything's ready for signatures. Perfect, Nathan replied, moving to stand beside Derek, a united front. Let's get this done. Julian spread out the papers, pointing to various signature lines. As Nathan reached for a pen, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Ryan. Don't sign anything. Coming to you now. Stall them. Actually, I said, stepping forward, I have some questions about the settlement statement from our house sale. Since I was a co-owner, shouldn't I have been required to sign those documents? Julian froze, pen hovering in midair. His eyes darted to Nathan, who jumped in smoothly. We've been over this, honey. The house was only in my name, remember? We discussed it when we purchased, for tax purposes. Did we? I feigned confusion. I remember signing mortgage documents, and I definitely remember transferring $87,000 from my personal account for the down payment. Derek cleared his throat, an edge of impatience creeping into his voice. Perhaps this is a conversation for later? We have a tight schedule today. Of course, I said sweetly. Far be it from me to disrupt the carefully orchestrated timeline. But I'm curious. I turned to Julian. Is it standard practice to sell a property for 30% below market value? In this climate? Our house could have easily commanded $800,000 in today's market, yet it sold for $625,000. Seems unusual for an experienced agent like yourself. Julian's discomfort visibly increased. Market value is subjective. The property needed updates, and the buyers were prepared to close quickly. The buyers being Skyline Ventures LLC, I interrupted. A company coincidentally owned by my husband and his business partner here. Fascinating how... That works? Derek's expression darkened. Nathan, perhaps you should speak with your wife privately before we proceed. That won't be necessary, Nathan said firmly. Rebecca is just processing a lot of changes right now. She'll come around. Will I? I wondered aloud. Just like, the homeowners in Oak Meadows came around when you pressured them to sell? Or like the small business owners in Westlake came around when you forced them out 3 years ago? Derek's head snapped toward me, genuine alarm replacing his annoyed expression. What did you just say? Westlake, I repeated calmly. Your previous venture, before you set your sights on Oak Ridge. The room fell silent. Julian, sensing the tension, began gathering his papers. Perhaps we should reschedule... No! Nathan cut him off sharply. We're doing this now. Rebecca, I need to speak with you, privately. The doorbell rang again, saving me from having to respond. Nathan looked confused, clearly not expecting anyone else. He went to answer it, returning moments later with Ryan in tow. Sorry to interrupt, Ryan said cheerfully, though his eyes were hard as he surveyed the room. Rebecca, you left some important documents at the house. Thought you might need them. He handed me a folder. Inside were printouts of emails between Nathan, Derek, and Councilman Harrington, discussing specific properties in Oak Meadows and the guaranteed zoning changes that would make them valuable. Thank you, Ryan, I said, deliberately casual. This is exactly what I needed. Derek's expression had shifted from alarm to thinly veiled hostility. Nathan, what is going on here? Nathan ignored him, focusing on me. Whatever you think you know, you're missing context. These deals are completely legitimate business ventures. Are they? Ryan asked innocently. Because from where I'm standing, using non-public information about zoning changes to acquire properties at deflated prices looks an awful lot like insider trading. And that's before we get to the payments to Councilman Harrington's campaign fund. Julian, who had been edging toward the door, froze. Payments? What payments? Nothing that concerns you, Derek snapped. In fact, I think we're done here. Julian, we'll call you to reschedule. Julian nodded gratefully and made a hasty exit, leaving the four of us in a tense standoff. "You've been following me," Nathan accused, turning to me. "Digging through my private communications, talking to people behind my back." "Ironic, coming from you," I replied evenly. "But no, I haven't been following you. I simply started paying attention to what was right in front of me." Derek's phone rang. He checked the display, his face tightening. "It's Vanessa. I need to take this." He stepped onto the balcony, closing the glass door behind him. Nathan seized the opportunity to approach me, his voice low and urgent. "You need to stop this now, Becca. You have no idea what you're dealing with." "I think I do," I countered. "A real estate scheme with political ambitions, fueled by insider information and questionable ethics. Did I miss anything?" "The big picture," Nathan hissed. "This isn't just about properties or campaigns. There are development plans for Oaks. Meadows that will transform this city. Billions in potential growth. The people we're working with aren't the kind you want to cross." "Are you threatening me?" I asked, genuinely startled. Nathan looked almost pained. "I'm trying to protect you. I always have been." "By planning to divorce me and marry someone else? That's an interesting definition of protection." Ryan cleared his throat, pointedly reminding us of his presence. "Rebecca, we should go. Elliot's waiting for us." Nathan's eyes narrowed. "Elliot Reeves? You involved a lawyer?" "Did you really think I wouldn't?" I asked, gathering my purse. "You sold our home, Nathan. Did you expect me to just accept that? Without question?" Derek burst back into the room from the balcony, his face flushed with anger. "Vanessa's talking to reporters. She's threatening to go public with everything. Westlake, Oak Meadows, the payments to Harrington, everything." Nathan went pale. "She can't. She signed NDAs. She has no proof." "Apparently she does," Derek snarled. "And according to her, she's not the only one who's been gathering evidence." Both men turned to look at me. "Becca," Nathan began, his voice strained. "Whatever you're planning, think carefully. There are ways we can work this out that benefit everyone." "I bet there are," I agreed, moving toward the door with Ryan close behind me. "But right now, I need to get to a meeting with my lawyer. Feel free to continue with your condo purchase. After all, you're so good at making unilateral property decisions." As Ryan and I left, I could hear Derek's angry voice rising behind. "Fix this, Nathan. Use whatever leverage you have, but fix it." In the elevator, Ryan immediately pulled out his phone. "Elliot's got everyone at his office waiting. We need to move fast. They're already trying to contain the damage." "What did you find in those emails?" I asked. "The ones you texted me about earlier?" Ryan's expression was grim. "Proof that the Oak Meadows scheme is just phase 1. They're planning similar operations in 3 other neighborhoods, all timed around strategic policy changes Nathan would help push through once. He's on the council." "They're using politics to fuel real estate fraud," I murmured, the scope of the scheme becoming clearer. "Politics, real estate, and something else?" Ryan replied cryptically. "But Elliot should explain that part." As we exited the building, I glanced back to see Nathan watching us from the condo balcony, phone pressed to his ear. He looked smaller somehow, diminished in the morning light, less the confident businessman I'd married, and more a desperate man watching his carefully constructed plans crumble. My phone buzzed with an incoming call from a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Rebecca Martinez?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes. Who's this?" "Amanda Keller. I believe you know who I am." My heart skipped a beat. Amanda, Nathan's intended replacement for me both personally and politically. "I do," I answered carefully, signaling to Ryan that something was happening. "What can I do for you, Ms. Keller?" "Meet me," she said simply. "There's more to this situation than you understand, and I think we'd both benefit from a conversation." "Alone?" I hesitated, weighing the risks. "When and where?" "The Botanical Gardens, Japanese section, 30 minutes." The call ended abruptly. Ryan looked at me questioningly. That was Amanda Keller, I explained. Nathan's, whatever she is. She wants to meet at the Botanical Gardens in half an hour. Ryan frowned. It could be a trap. Nathan and Derek might be trying to intimidate you. Or she might have information we need, I countered. Either way, I want to hear what she has to say. Not alone, Ryan insisted. I'll come with you, stay at a distance. If anything seems off, I'll intervene. I nodded, already texting Elliot to inform him of the change in plans. His response came quickly. Be careful. Recording app on your phone already activated. Every word will be captured. The Oak Ridge Botanical Gardens were quiet on a weekday morning, with only a few visitors strolling through the meticulously maintained grounds. The Japanese section, with its rock garden and koi pond, offered relative privacy while still being public enough to discourage any overtly threatening behavior. Amanda Keller was already waiting when I arrived, seated on a stone bench near the pond. She was younger than I'd expected, perhaps 30, with the polished appearance of someone who understood the power of image in politics. Her navy suit and pearl earrings screamed, "Future politician's wife," so loudly it would have been comical if the situation weren't so painful. Ms. Martinez, she greeted me, extending her hand. Thank you for coming. I shook her hand briefly. Ms. Keller, you wanted to talk? Yes. She gestured for me to sit beside her. I imagine you have a certain impression of me, and I can't blame you for that. But I think it's important you understand that I'm as much a pawn in this situation as you are. That wasn't what I'd expected to hear. A pawn who's wearing my husband's engagement ring? Amanda glanced down at her ringless fingers. Actually, I've never accepted any jewelry from Nathan. The ring story was for Derek's benefit, to keep him believing that Nathan was fully committed to the plan. And what plan is that, exactly? I asked, watching her carefully for signs of deception. She sighed, looking out over the koi pond. The official version? Nathan becomes the fresh-faced reformer on the city council, pushing through development. Projects that revitalize struggling neighborhoods while coincidentally making his financial backers very rich. The perfect political origin story, businessman turned public servant. And the unofficial version? Amanda turned to face me fully. Nathan gets set up to take the fall when the fraud inevitably comes to light. He's the public face, the one signing documents, making statements. Meanwhile, the real power players, Harrington, developers like Conrad Wilson, even Derek to some extent, remain insulated from any blowback. I processed this information, trying to reconcile it with what I already knew. Why are you telling me this? Self-preservation, she answered honestly. I work for Councilman Harrington's office. My relationship with Nathan was assigned, not chosen. My job was to guide him toward decisions that benefited certain interests, while making him believe it was all his idea. And now? Now things are unraveling faster than anticipated. Vanessa Phillips is talking to reporters. You're meeting with lawyers. The carefully constructed narrative is falling apart, and I have no intention of going down with this ship. So you're just looking out for yourself, I concluded. Amanda smiled thinly. Aren't we all? But I'm also offering you something valuable, context and information. For instance, did you know that the Oak Meadows properties aren't the end goal? They're just phase 1 of a much larger development scheme. Phase 1 of 3 neighborhoods, I said, recalling what Ryan had told me. She looked mildly impressed. You've done your homework. But did you also know that those developments are tied to a planned casino project? One that's currently illegal under Oak Ridge zoning laws but would become possible with the right council members in place. That was new information. A casino? In Oak Ridge? Amanda nodded. Presented as an entertainment complex and economic driver, of course. The real money isn't in flipping houses. It's in the gambling license and the operational contracts that come with it. Your husband and Derek are just the visible front men, accumulating properties that will eventually be bundled and sold to the casino developers at a significant markup. And Councilman Harrington has already been promised a consulting position with the casino group once he leaves office. 7 figures, minimal responsibilities. The scope of the scheme was dizzying, far beyond the real estate fraud I'd initially suspected. Why would Nathan agree to be the fall guy? He's ambitious, but he's not stupid. Because he doesn't know that's his role, Amanda explained. He genuinely believes he's being groomed for political advancement. The council seat is just the first step. They've dangled the possibility of a congressional run in a few years. And he's completely bought into the vision. And you? I asked. What's your role beyond manipulating my husband? Something flashed in Amanda's eyes. Annoyance, perhaps, or genuine remorse. I handle sensitive communications. Make sure the right people get the right information at the right time. Keep the narrative consistent. It's what I was trained to do. Political operative turned corporate spy, I summarized. She didn't deny it. We all use the skills we have, like you're using yours right now to record this conversation. I didn't bother pretending otherwise. Can you blame me? Not at all. In fact, I'm counting on it. Amanda reached into her purse and withdrew a small USB drive. Everything I just told you is documented here. Emails, meeting notes, financial projections for the casino development. Consider it my insurance policy. And now yours too. I took the drive cautiously. Why give this to me? Because you're the unknown variable they didn't account for. Nathan described you as uninvolved, uninterested in his business dealings. Clearly, he underestimated you. And right now, you're positioned to disrupt their entire operation in ways I can't from the inside. And what do you want in exchange? Amanda stood, smoothing her skirt with practiced precision. Immunity when this all comes to light. I'm willing to testify about everything I know, but I want assurances that I won't be prosecuted. I'm not a prosecutor, I reminded her. I can't make those kinds of promises. No, but your lawyer can negotiate with the DA's office on my behalf. Elliot Reeves has that kind of influence. So she knew about Elliot. Of course she did. Her job was to know everything. I'll discuss it with him, I said noncommittally. Amanda nodded, apparently satisfied. One more thing you should know. Nathan is more victim than villain in this. Ambitious, yes. Ethical, questionable. But he's not the mastermind. When you decide what to do with all this information, remember that. Why do you care what happens? To Nathan? I asked, genuinely curious. A complicated expression crossed her face. Professional respect, perhaps. Or maybe I'm just tired of watching powerful men sacrifice pawns. She checked her watch. I should go. Harrington will be looking. For me. As she turned to leave, I called after her. The diamond pendant. If not for you, then who? Amanda paused. That, I don't know. But Nathan's kept a separate apartment on Juniper Street for nearly a year. You might want to start there. With that cryptic parting comment, she walked away, her heels clicking precisely on the stone path. I remained seated, trying to process everything I'd just learned. The USB drive felt heavy in my hand. A digital Pandora's box containing enough secrets to destroy multiple careers and possibly change the future of Oak Ridge itself. My phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. All clear. Meet you at the south entrance. In 5. As I made my way through the gardens, another text came through. This one from Zoe. Nathan's been calling nonstop looking for you. Also, someone's been parked outside my apartment watching the building. Be careful. A chill ran down my spine despite the mild autumn day. The stakes were clearly escalating. Nathan and his associates wouldn't simply allow their plans to be dismantled without a fight. Ryan was waiting at the garden entrance, visibly relieved to see me. Everything okay? I couldn't hear the conversation from where I was positioned. Better than okay, I said, showing him the USB drive. Amanda just handed us the blueprint to their entire operation, including a casino development that's apparently the endgame of all these property acquisitions. Ryan's eyebrows shot up. A casino? That would never get approved in Oak Ridge without significant political maneuvering, I finished for him. Hence Nathan's council run. We need to get this to Elliot right away, Ryan said, already heading toward the parking lot. And we need to be careful. If what Amanda gave you is as explosive as it sounds, there are people who would go to great lengths to contain it. As if on cue, my phone rang. Nathan again. After a moment's hesitation, I answered. Where are you? He demanded, his voice tight with stress. We need to talk, now. I'm handling some things, I replied vaguely. And yes, we do need to talk. But not yet. Rebecca, please. Things are spiraling out of control. Derek's threatening legal action, Harrington's people are calling, and Vanessa's talking to the Oak Ridge Tribune. Whatever you think you know. I know about the casino, Nathan, I interrupted quietly. The line went silent for several seconds. When Nathan spoke again, his voice had changed. More cautious, more calculating. Who told you about that? Does it matter? The point is, I know. I know about all of it. The properties, the zoning, changes, the payments to Harrington, the plans for your political career. I know everything. Another long pause. Not everything, he finally said. Meet me at home. Our real home, not the house, and I'll explain. Our real home? What did that mean? Before I could ask, Nathan continued. The farmhouse on Orchard Lane. I know about it, Becca. I've always known. Meet me there in an hour, just you and me. No lawyers, no siblings, no friends. If you ever loved me at all, give me this chance. The farmhouse, my farmhouse, the property I'd purchased in secret, thinking Nathan had no idea it existed. How long had he known? And what else was he hiding? 1 hour, I agreed after a moment. And Nathan, come alone. Because if you don't, this USB drive goes straight to the district attorney's office. I ended the call before he could respond, turning to find Ryan watching me with concern. You're not actually going to meet him alone, are you? He asked. No, I replied, already dialing Elliot's number. I'm going to meet him with the full force of the law behind me. It's time to end this game once and for all. Elliot answered on the first ring. Rebecca, are you okay? I'm fine, I assured him. But I need you to call the district attorney immediately. Tell him we have evidence of real estate fraud, political corruption, and attempted bribery involving Councilman Harrington and multiple developers. And tell him we need officers at the farmhouse on Orchard Lane in 1 hour. Rebecca? I know it sounds dramatic, Elliot. But trust me, what I just learned changes everything. Nathan's been set up as the fall guy in a scheme much bigger than we initially thought. And in 1 hour, he's either going to confess everything or dig himself a deeper hole. And you'll be there to witness it, Elliot concluded, understanding, dawning in his voice. Exactly. It's time Nathan faces the consequences of his choices, all of them. Starting with the fact that he sold our home without realizing I bought another one right under his nose. As Ryan drove us to Elliot's office to regroup before the confrontation at the farmhouse, I felt a strange sense of calm descending. After days of shock, anger, and betrayal, I finally understood the full picture, or at least enough of it to take back control. Nathan had underestimated me from the beginning, dismissing my intelligence, my resilience, and my resourcefulness. He'd sold our home thinking it would leave me vulnerable and dependent on his plans. He couldn't have known that I'd already secured my own future, my own space, my own foundation. The farmhouse on Orchard Lane wasn't just a property investment or a weekend getaway. It was my insurance policy against exactly the kind of betrayal Nathan had orchestrated. And now, ironically, it would become the stage for his final act of desperation. What are you going to do when this is all over? Ryan asked, breaking the contemplative silence in the car. I gazed out the window at the familiar streets of Oak Ridge, the city I'd made my home, the community Nathan had been willing to exploit for his ambitions. Rebuild, I said simply, but this time, on my own terms. The farmhouse awaited, and with it, a confrontation years in the making. Nathan thought he was summoning me to a reckoning, not realizing he was walking into one himself. As we pulled up to Elliot's office, I felt the weight of the USB drive in my pocket, a small piece of plastic that contained enough truth to change everything. The final act was about to begin. Elliot's office buzzed with activity as we arrived. Gabby was on the phone with a financial crimes investigator she knew, speaking in rapid-fire technical terms about money trails and shell companies. Zoe was coordinating with Vanessa Phillips, who had apparently decided to go all in on exposing the scheme. Elliot himself was deep in conversation with a stern-looking woman I recognized as Assistant District Attorney Monica Vega. "Rebecca!" Elliot called out when he saw me. "This is ADA Vega. She's very interested in what we've uncovered." Monica Vega extended her hand. "Ms. Martinez, I understand you've acquired some compelling evidence regarding Councilman Harrington and certain development projects." "I have," I confirmed, pulling out the USB drive Amanda had given me. "This contains documentation of a coordinated effort to manipulate property values and zoning laws to facilitate a casino development in Oak Ridge." Monica's eyebrows rose slightly, the only indication of surprise from her otherwise composed demeanor. "A casino? That would require significant changes to local ordinances." "Changes that would be pushed through by sympathetic council members," I explained, "including my husband, who was being positioned to run for office specifically to advance these interests." Elliot took the USB drive, connecting it to his computer. As the files populated on his screen, his expression grew increasingly grave. "This is comprehensive," he said finally. "Emails, financial projections, meeting minutes, proposed legislation drafts. Whoever your source is, they had access to the inner workings of this entire operation." "Amanda Keller," I supplied. "She works for Councilman Harrington and was assigned to guide Nathan's political aspirations." "Among other things," Ryan added with a pointed look. Monica reviewed the documents with practiced efficiency. "This is more than enough for search warrants, possibly enough for preliminary charges, depending on how quickly we can verify these materials." "Then we should move quickly," Elliot urged. "Nathan is expecting to meet Rebecca at her farmhouse property in," he checked his watch, "40 minutes. It's a perfect opportunity to confront him with this evidence and potentially get a confession." "A controlled confrontation," Monica mused. "We'd need recording equipment, witnesses." "Already arranged," Elliot assured her. "I have 2 investigators on standby who can pose as caretakers on the property. They'll place recording devices and remain within earshot in case of any complications." The way he said complications sent a chill through me. Until that moment, I hadn't fully considered that Nathan might react unpredictably, even dangerously, when cornered. "Do you think he would—" I began, then stopped, unable to articulate the concern. Zoe squeezed my shoulder reassuringly. "Nathan's a lot of things, but he's not violent. Manipulative, deceptive, self-serving? Absolutely. But physical threats aren't his style." "Still, we'll take precautions," Monica insisted. "I'll have officers nearby, out of sight but ready to intervene if necessary." The next 30 minutes passed in a whirlwind of preparation. I was fitted with a discreet recording device, given instructions on how to guide the conversation towards specific admissions, and briefed on what to do if the situation became volatile. Through it all, I maintained a strange sense of detachment, as if I were preparing for a particularly challenging business presentation rather than a confrontation with the man who had betrayed me in every possible way. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Ryan asked as we prepared to leave for the farmhouse. "You don't have to be the one to face him." "Yes, I do," I said firmly. Not just for the case, but for me. I need to look him in the eye when he finally tells the truth. The drive to Orchard Lane took us away from Oak Ridge's suburban sprawl and into the rolling countryside that had first drawn me to the farmhouse. As we approached the property, my property, I felt a surge of gratitude for the impulse that had led me to purchase it months ago. Little did I know then that it would become not just a refuge, but a battleground. Elliot parked his car discreetly behind a stand of apple trees, out of sight from the main approach to the house. Monica and two plainclothes officers positioned themselves in a separate vehicle near the back entrance. Ryan and Zoe would remain with Elliot, monitoring the audio feed from the recording devices that had already been placed throughout the first floor of the house. "Remember," Elliot said as I prepared to enter alone, "the goal is to get him talking about the casino plan, the property acquisitions, and especially any communication with Harrington about zoning changes. Don't antagonize him, but don't let him control the narrative either. I've been negotiating with difficult clients for years," I reminded him with a small smile. "I know how to handle stubborn men who think they're the smartest person in the room." With that, I walked up the gravel path to the farmhouse porch, each step feeling momentous. The house stood solid and welcoming against the autumn sky, its wide porch and classic lines representing everything Nathan had dismissed in favor of sleek downtown condos and political ambitions. I had just reached the porch steps when a familiar car pulled into the driveway. Nathan's sleek black Audi, the one he'd insisted on buying last year, despite my suggestion that we put the money toward renovating our kitchen instead. He parked but remained in the driver's seat for several long moments, apparently gathering his thoughts or perhaps making a phone call. Finally, he emerged, looking uncharacteristically disheveled in wrinkled dress clothes and without his usual, precisely styled hair. He approached cautiously, stopping at the foot of the steps to look up at me standing on the porch. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "You bought a farmhouse," he finally said, his tone unreadable. "I did, 9 months ago." "With your inheritance money?" I nodded. "The money you told me was foolishly spent because real estate is a headache, and I should leave investments to people who understand them." Nathan had the grace to look embarrassed. "I was wrong. It's a beautiful property." "Yes, it is. Are you coming inside, or shall we have this conversation on the porch?" He hesitated, glancing around as if looking for signs of a trap. "Are you alone?" "As requested," I lied smoothly. "Are you?" "Yes." I turned and unlocked the door, stepping into the farmhouse that still smelled of fresh paint and new beginnings. The interior was sparsely furnished, a few essential pieces I'd collected over time, planning for a future that now looked very different than I'd imagined. Nathan followed me inside, his eyes scanning the open-concept living area with its exposed beams and wide plank floors. "How did you manage all this without me knowing?" "Easily," I replied, setting my purse down on the rustic dining table. "You've been so consumed with your own plans for the past year that you barely noticed what I was doing. I could have bought an entire ranch, and you wouldn't have noticed as long as dinner was on the table when you came home." Nathan winced at the accuracy of my assessment. I deserved that. "You deserve a lot more than that," I said evenly. "But I didn't ask you here to trade recriminations. You said you wanted to explain. So explain." Nathan moved to the large windows, overlooking the orchard, his back to me. "It wasn't supposed to go this way," he began. "The original plan was simple: identify undervalued properties in areas targeted for development, acquire them through Skyline, then sell at a profit once the zoning changes increased their value. Standard real estate speculation. "There's nothing standard about using inside information from city officials," I pointed out. "No," he agreed, turning to face me. "But that came later, after Derek introduced me to Harrington. At first it was just business, profitable but legitimate." "And when did it cross the line into fraud?" Nathan's expression tightened. It's not black and white, Rebecca. Development always requires working with city officials, understanding future plans. The line between networking and influence is blurry at best. And the casino plan? Is that blurry too? His eyes widened slightly. How much do you know? Everything, I said, moving to the kitchen counter where I'd left a glass of water. I know about Conrad Wilson and his entertainment company. I know about the proposed community development district that's actually a front for bringing gambling to Oak Ridge. I know about the payments to Harrington disguised as consulting fees. She told you, Nathan realized. Amanda. She gave me the documentation, I confirmed. Every email, every meeting minute, every financial projection. Nathan ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made my heart ache despite everything. Amanda was supposed to be our liaison with Harrington's office. I never thought she'd, what? Develop a conscience? Decide that fraud and corruption weren't acceptable career moves? It's more complicated than that, Nathan insisted. There are legitimate economic benefits to these developments. Jobs, tax revenue, tourism. Oak Ridge needs revitalization. And you needed a convenient narrative for your political campaign, I added. The visionary businessman bringing prosperity to his hometown. Very compelling. Nathan had the decency to look ashamed. The campaign, that wasn't the original plan either. Harrington approached me after seeing how effectively we were acquiring properties in Oak Meadows. He said I had the right profile for local politics, successful, personable, with deep community ties, and conveniently willing to support certain zoning changes once in office, I noted. Yes, Nathan admitted, but I told myself it was a win-win. The developments would benefit Oak Ridge, and I'd have a chance to make a difference beyond business. Noble, I said dryly. And where exactly did selling our home without telling me fit into this altruistic vision? Nathan moved to the dining table, pulling out a chair, but not sitting. That was a mistake, a big one. I convinced myself it was necessary, that the downtown condo would be better suited for a political couple, that the optics of downsizing showed fiscal responsibility. And the real reason? He gripped the back of the chair tightly. I needed capital. My stake in the Oak Meadows properties was larger than I could cover with liquid assets. The Westlake deals tied up most of our savings, and I couldn't access that without raising red flags. So you sold our home, I summarized. The one place that was supposed to be ours together. And you did it knowing the house was only in your name, deliberately keeping me in the dark until it was too late for me to object. Yes, he said quietly, and I've regretted it every day since. Regretted the decision. Or regretted getting caught. Nathan didn't answer immediately, his gaze dropping to the wooden floor. When he looked up again, there was a calculated sincerity in his expression that I recognized from countless business negotiations. Rebecca, I know I've made terrible mistakes, but it's not too late to salvage something. The properties are valuable even without the casino plan. We could still come out of this ahead financially. And there it was, the self-interest that ultimately drove Nathan's every decision. Not remorse for betraying me, not concern for the ethical implications of his actions, but a desperate attempt to protect his financial position. That's your priority right now? I asked incredulously. Making sure you still profit from all this? Being practical, he countered. The Skyline properties are our biggest asset. If we play this right, we can distance ourselves from Harrington. And the casino plan, while still benefiting from the legitimate property investments. There's nothing legitimate about how those properties were acquired, I reminded him. And there is no we anymore, Nathan. You made sure of that when you decided our marriage was expendable. His expression hardened. What are you saying? I'm saying that your political career is over before it began. The Oak Meadows scheme is exposed. Harrington is being investigated, and I've filed for divorce. Nathan stared at me, genuine shock replacing his carefully managed expression. You've… What? Filed for divorce, I repeated calmly. The paperwork was submitted yesterday. You should be receiving your copy shortly. Becca, you can't… I can, and I have. And before you say another word, you should know that everything you've said in the last 15 minutes has been recorded and witnessed by representatives from the district attorney's office. The blood drained from Nathan's face. You're wearing a wire? I didn't need to, I said, gesturing to the potted plant on the coffee table where one of Elliot's devices was hidden. This entire house is wired. The DA has enough to pursue charges against Harrington, against Derek, and, if you don't cooperate, against you. Nathan's shock quickly gave way to anger. You set me up. After 8 years of marriage, this is how you handle it? By wearing a wire and trapping me? After 8 years of marriage, you sold our home without telling me and planned to replace me with a more politically advantageous partner, I countered. Don't talk to me about loyalty or fair play. He moved suddenly, striding to the window, as if contemplating escape. This is illegal. Entrapment. My lawyer will… Your lawyer will advise you to cooperate fully, I interrupted. Because right now, you're looking at potential charges for wire fraud, conspiracy, and misappropriation of marital assets. That's before we get to the campaign finance violations and evidence tampering. Evidence tampering? What are you talking about? The files you deleted from our home computer before selling the house? The ones you thought were gone forever, not realizing I'd backed up everything to a secure cloud account months ago. This was a bluff. I had no idea if Nathan had deleted incriminating files from our computer, but his expression told me the shot had landed. You don't understand what you're doing, he said, his voice low and dangerous. These people, they're not the kind you want to cross. Threatening me won't help your situation, I said evenly. In fact, it's being added to the record as we speak. As if on cue, the front door opened, and Elliot entered with Ada Vega. Nathan Martinez, Monica began formally. I'd like to discuss your involvement in certain real estate transactions and communications with Councilman Edward Harrington. Nathan looked from Monica to me, betrayal and fury warring in his expression. You'll regret this, Rebecca. When everything comes out, all of it, you'll wish you'd handled this differently. What does that mean? I asked, a flicker of unease disrupting my composure. What else is there? Instead of answering, Nathan turned to Monica. I want immunity. Full immunity in exchange for everything I know about Harrington, Wilson, and the entire operation. Monica's expression remained professional, but I could see the interest in her eyes. That would depend entirely on the value of your information and your willingness to testify against the other parties involved. Oh, I'll testify, Nathan assured her with a bitter laugh. I'll tell you everything, including the parts my wife doesn't know about yet. Nathan? I began, suddenly uncertain. Not now, Rebecca. He cut me off coldly. You've made your choice. Now I'm making mine. Elliot stepped forward. Mr. Martinez, I suggest you consider your position carefully. Cooperating is indeed your best option, but threatening or attempting to manipulate your wife won't help your case. Nathan ignored him, focusing solely on Monica. I have documentation that will implicate Harrington in at least 3 separate corruption schemes beyond the casino plan. I can give you names, dates, amounts transferred. Everything you need to build a case that will end his political career. Permanently. And in exchange? Monica prompted. Immunity from prosecution, a favorable divorce settlement, and protection. Because once I start talking, there are people who won't be happy about it. Monica nodded thoughtfully. I'm not authorized to make those promises on the spot, but I can certainly present your offer to the district attorney. In the meantime, I'd like you to come downtown to make a formal statement. Am I under arrest? Nathan asked bluntly. Not at this time, Monica replied. We're simply requesting your voluntary cooperation. Nathan laughed without humor. Nothing about this is voluntary, but fine, I'll come. I'd rather deal with the DA's office than face what's waiting for me if I don't cooperate. As Monica led Nathan toward the door, he paused beside me. For what it's worth, I never meant to hurt you, he said quietly. I just got in over my head. You sold our home, Nathan, I reminded him, my voice steady despite the emotions churning beneath the surface. You were planning to divorce me and marry someone else as a career move. If that wasn't meant to hurt me, I'd hate to see what would be. A complex expression crossed his face. Part remorse, part calculation, part something I couldn't quite identify. The house was just a building, Becca. What I did with Amanda, that was business, not personal. But there are things you don't know yet, things that will change how you see all of this. What things? I demanded. If you have something to say it now. Nathan glanced at Monica, who was waiting impatiently by the door. Not here, not like this, but you'll find out soon enough. With that cryptic parting shot, he allowed himself to be escorted outside to a waiting police cruiser. As the door closed behind them, I sank into a chair, suddenly exhausted. The confrontation that I'd been building toward for days was over, but instead of closure, I felt only more questions swirling in its wake. What was he talking about? I asked Elliot, who had remained behind. What don't I know? Elliot's expression was troubled. It could be a manipulation tactic, creating uncertainty to undermine your confidence. Nathan's a businessman. He knows how to negotiate from weakness. Or there's something in those files we haven't found yet, Elliot acknowledged. Something that might complicate the narrative. Before I could respond, the door opened again and Zoe rushed in, her expression a mix of excitement and concern. You did it! That was incredible. We heard everything through the audio feed. Nathan basically confessed to the entire scheme. Not everything, I said, still disturbed by Nathan's parting words. He's hinting at something else, something he thinks will change how I view the situation. Classic manipulation, Ryan said, following Zoe inside. He's losing control and trying to regain leverage by creating mystery. I wouldn't read too much into it. Perhaps they were right. Perhaps Nathan was simply trying to unsettle me, to make me question my decisions, and possibly even withdraw my cooperation with the authorities. It would be entirely in character for him to use psychological tactics when direct approaches failed. And yet, the nagging doubt remained. What if there was something important I was missing? Some piece of the puzzle that would reframe my understanding of Nathan's actions? We should go through Amanda's files again, I suggested. And whatever else was on that USB drive from our wedding photo, there might be something we overlooked. Elliot nodded. I'll have my team do a deeper analysis. But Rebecca, even if there is some complicating factor, it doesn't change the fundamental breaches of trust and legal violations that have occurred. Nathan still sold your home without consent. He still conspired with Harrington to manipulate zoning laws for personal gain. Those facts aren't in dispute. I know, I acknowledged. But I want the complete picture. I need to understand exactly what I've been part of, even unwittingly. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. Nathan isn't the villain you think. Ask about Project Renaissance in the farmhouse. Yes, your farmhouse. AA for Amanda? I showed the message to the others. Project Renaissance? Ryan repeated. That wasn't mentioned in any of the documents we've reviewed. And what could the farmhouse possibly have to do with any of this? Zoe wondered. You bought it months ago, before any of these schemes came to light. I stared at the text, a cold feeling settling in my stomach. I need to go back to Elliot's office. Right now. We need to go through everything again. Property records, bank statements, emails. All of it. Why? Elliot asked, concern furrowing his brow. What are you thinking? I'm thinking, I said slowly, that 9 months ago, I found this property by chance during a Sunday drive. It was perfect. Exactly what I'd always wanted, right down to the apple orchard and the creek at the back of the property. And it was surprisingly affordable for a property of this size in this area. You think it wasn't a coincidence, Ryan realized, catching on to my train of thought. I think, I said, looking around at the farmhouse I'd believed was my secret refuge, that nothing about the past year has been what it seemed. And I'm starting to wonder if I've been a pawn in a game much larger than I realized. Elliot checked his watch. The district attorney will be interviewing Nathan within the hour. If there's something in those files that could impact your position, we need to find it before Nathan uses it as leverage. As we prepared to leave, I took one last look at the farmhouse, my supposed sanctuary that now felt tainted by suspicion. Had my purchase been manipulated somehow? Was this property connected to the larger scheme in ways I hadn't imagined? The answers lay in those files, in the digital trail of communications and transactions that would either confirm or disprove Nathan's insinuations. And I was determined to find them before he could use whatever knowledge he possessed to regain the upper hand. The game wasn't over. It had merely entered a new phase, with stakes I was only beginning to understand. Elliot's office had transformed into a war room. Folders, printouts, and laptops covered every surface as we combed through the mountain of evidence we'd collected. Gabby had created an elaborate financial timeline on a whiteboard, tracking every transaction connected to Nathan, Derek, and their various business entities. Ryan was deep diving into the digital files from Amanda's USB drive, while Zoe coordinated with Vanessa, who was providing additional context from her perspective as Derek's wife. Found something, Ryan announced after nearly an hour of tense silence. Project Renaissance. It's mentioned in an email exchange between Nathan and someone called JL from about 11 months ago. I moved to look over his shoulder at the screen. The email was brief but suggestive. N. Project Renaissance proceeding as planned. Target properties identified. First acquisition, designated orchard, will be available next month. Need spouse. Signature on fidelity transfer to free up capital. Let's discuss timeline. JL. Orchard, I repeated, my stomach tightening. That could be referring to my farmhouse. It has a 3-acre apple orchard. But you found the property during a random Sunday drive, Zoe pointed out. How could they have planned for you to buy it? Maybe it wasn't random, I said slowly, memories reshuffling in my mind. Nathan mentioned that route one morning, said he'd heard the countryside was beautiful that time of year. He even suggested I take my camera. Ryan continued scrolling through the emails. There's more. Look at this exchange from a week later. JL. Wife visited orchard property yesterday. Showed expected interest. Realtor prepared to offer special price to encourage quick decision. Personal funds sufficient? NN. Perfect timing. Her year-end bonus posts next week. Combined with inheritance portion, should be adequate for outright purchase. Will monitor. JL. A cold realization washed over me. They manipulated me into buying the farmhouse. But why? What possible benefit would Nathan get from me purchasing a property without his knowledge? Elliot, who had been reviewing property records, looked up sharply. Check the surrounding parcels. Who owns the land adjacent to your farmhouse? Gabby was already typing furiously on her laptop. Pulling county records now. The properties bordering the farmhouse are owned by Meridian Holdings LLC, Oak Ridge Future Development Corp., and Martinez Family Trust. Martinez Family Trust? I echoed. I never set up a family trust. Nathan did, Gabby confirmed, still reading from her screen. Established 14 months ago. The trust owns approximately 50 acres adjacent to your farmhouse property. The pieces were starting to align, creating a picture I hadn't anticipated. They're assembling a land parcel, I said, understanding dawning. buying up adjacent properties under different names to avoid arousing suspicion about a major development. Not just any development, Ryan added, showing me another email. Look at this map attachment. It shows a proposed recreational complex and luxury residential community. The farmhouse property is highlighted as the central historic feature. A centerpiece property, Elliot mused. Often developers will preserve one attractive historic building and build around it. It adds character and helps with zoning approvals. Look, we're preserving local heritage. My mind was racing. So Nathan wanted me to buy the farmhouse, thinking I was doing it secretly, when actually I was unwittingly participating in their development scheme? It's diabolically clever, Gabby admitted. If the farmhouse had been purchased by a company connected to Nathan or Derek, it might have raised red flags about a planned development. But a private purchase by you, seemingly independent from Nathan's, business dealings. Perfect cover, Elliot finished. And it established the property value benchmark for the area. Whatever you paid became the comparable price point for the surrounding land. I sank into a chair, trying to process this new revelation. So, when I thought I was asserting my independence by buying property without telling Nathan, you were actually doing exactly what he wanted, Zoe said gently. The betrayal cut even deeper than before. Not only had Nathan planned to discard me when politically convenient, but he'd been manipulating me all along, using my desires and insecurities to further his business schemes. Ryan was still digging through files. There's something else here. Project Renaissance isn't just about the farmhouse area. It's part of a larger development strategy involving 3 distinct zones: Oak Meadows, the farmhouse region, called Orchard Estates in these documents, and a riverside area they're calling Harbor Point. 3 separate development projects, all feeding into the ultimate casino plan, Elliot surmised. Diversified enough that if one faced obstacles, the others could still proceed. And they needed different frontmen for each project to avoid arousing suspicion, Gabby added. Nathan was the face of Oak Meadows, Derek was handling Harbor Point, and for Orchard Estates, they needed someone else, I finished. Someone with no obvious connection to Nathan or Derek's business interests. Someone above suspicion. Ryan nodded grimly. Someone like Councilman Harrington's aide, who was secretly working with them all along. Amanda, I breathed. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. She wasn't just Nathan's political handler. She was meant to be the front person for the Orchard Estates development. Which explains why Nathan needed to end his marriage to you, Elliot said quietly. Amanda wasn't just a more politically advantageous partner. She was an essential part of the development scheme. The full scale of the deception left me momentarily speechless. Every aspect of my life for the past year, where I lived, what I knew, even my impending divorce, had been orchestrated to serve Nathan's business and political ambitions. There's one thing I still don't understand, Zoe said, breaking the heavy silence. If Nathan wanted you to buy the farmhouse as part of their scheme, why was he so shocked when you mentioned it today? Why pretend he didn't know about it? Because the plan changed, Ryan suggested, still scrolling through emails. Look at these more recent messages between Nathan and this JL person. JL. Casino. Approval facing unexpected obstacles. Harrington. Suggests pivoting to Plan B. Need to accelerate property acquisitions in all 3 zones. NN. Agreed. Spouse property complicates Orchard Estates timeline. Recommend proceeding with separation sooner than originally planned. Will help clear title issues. JL. Divorce papers being prepared. Will file after house sale completed. A confirms readiness for next phase. N. They needed to get me out of the picture entirely, I realized. The farmhouse purchase was useful initially, but when their plans accelerated, my ownership became an obstacle rather than an asset. Because if they're assembling land for major development, having a parcel owned by the soon-to-be ex-wife of one of the principal developers creates complications, Elliot confirmed, especially if that ex-wife might become hostile during divorce proceedings. My phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number. Check property survey maps from county records. Compare with conservation easement boundaries. The truth is in the overlap. AI showed the message to the others. What conservation easement? Gabby was already searching through county records. There's a protected wetland area that runs through part of the farmhouse property. According to these records, it was granted conservation status about 15 years ago, which would make development on that portion impossible, Elliot noted. A significant obstacle for any large-scale project. Unless the boundaries were redrawn, Ryan suggested, putting the pieces together. If someone with influence in the planning department were to quietly adjust those conservation boundaries. Gabby pulled up 2 maps side by side on her laptop. These are the original conservation easement boundaries from 2010, she said, pointing to the first map. And these are the current boundaries according to county records. The difference was subtle but significant. The protected area had shrunk by nearly 20 acres, conveniently clearing space for development around the farmhouse. This is actual fraud, Elliot said, his expression grim. Falsifying conservation boundaries is a federal offense. If Harrington was involved in this, he was, Ryan confirmed, showing us another email. Here's a message from Nathan to Harrington, directly, thanking him for his assistance with the boundary adjustment matter. Harrington replied that it was a simple administrative correction that benefits everyone. So that's what Nathan meant, I said quietly. When he said I didn't know everything, this is what he was holding back. Evidence that could implicate Harrington in federal fraud charges. That's his leverage for an immunity deal. Elliot was already dialing Monica Vega's number. She needs to know about this before she makes any decisions about Nathan's cooperation agreement. While Elliot spoke with the ADA, I tried to process the cascading revelations. My farmhouse, my supposed refuge and symbol of independence, had been part of Nathan's scheme all along. The property I'd fallen in love with had been deliberately placed in my path as part of a complex development fraud. Even my role as the betrayed wife had served Nathan's purposes, distracting attention from the larger corruption at play. Rebecca, Zoe said gently, noticing my expression, this doesn't invalidate your feelings about the farmhouse. The fact that Nathan manipulated the situation doesn't change the fact that you genuinely connected with the property. Doesn't it, though? I asked bitterly. If my discovery of the farmhouse was orchestrated, if my decision to buy it played right into their plans, how can I trust any of my choices from the past year? Because you made them, Ryan said firmly. Whatever Nathan's intentions, whatever strings he tried to pull, you made the final decisions based on your values and desires. He may have set the stage, but you wrote your own lines. There was wisdom in Ryan's perspective, but the violation still cut deep. Nathan hadn't just betrayed our marriage, he'd attempted to weaponize my very agency, turning my independent choices into unwitting participation in his schemes. Elliot ended his call with Monica, his expression thoughtful. The DA's office is very interested in the conservation easement fraud. It elevates the case from local corruption to federal charges. They're preparing search warrants for Harrington's office and home right now. And Nathan? I asked. Will he get his immunity deal? Partial immunity only, contingent on full cooperation. He'll avoid the most serious charges, but there will still be consequences. Elliot hesitated. There's something else. Nathan has asked to speak with you, alone. Why would I agree to that? I asked incredulously. Haven't I been manipulated enough? It's entirely your choice, Elliot assured me. But Monica thinks he has additional information he's only willing to share with you directly. Something about the original property purchase of your house, the one he sold. Curiosity warred with caution. What else could there possibly be to this tangled web of deceit? And did I even want to know? I'll think about it, I said finally. But first, I want to understand exactly what happened with my farmhouse. If it was part of their development scheme all along, what happens to it now? That's the interesting part, Gabby said, still reviewing property records. Your purchase is completely legitimate. You own that land outright. And with Nathan's arrest and the investigation into the surrounding property acquisitions, any development plans for Orchard Estates are effectively dead. So, the farmhouse is truly mine, I said, a small comfort in the midst of chaos. Completely, Elliot confirmed, and potentially worth significantly more than you paid, given the conservation easement and the collapse of the development scheme. Zoe squeezed my hand encouragingly. See? Some good comes from even the worst situations. My phone buzzed again. Another text from the mystery number. Final piece. Check the Martinez Family Trust beneficiaries. Not what you expect. Orion, I said, showing him the message. Can you? Already on it, he replied, typing rapidly. After a few minutes of searching, his eyebrows shot up in surprise. The Martinez Family Trust. You're listed as the primary beneficiary. What? I moved to see his screen. That can't be right. Nathan wouldn't set up a trust with me as beneficiary if he was planning to divorce me. The trust was established 14 months ago, Ryan reminded me. Before the casino plan accelerated and changed their timeline. Look at the trust provisions. It specifically states that your beneficiary status remains unchanged regardless of marital status. That makes no sense, I said, genuinely confused. If Nathan was planning to replace me with Amanda, why would he permanently secure my financial interest in these properties? Maybe he wasn't always planning to replace you, Zoe suggested. Maybe that part came later, when Harrington and the others pushed for a more politically suitable partner. The thought was oddly painful, the possibility that Nathan's betrayal hadn't been his original intention, but rather a compromise he'd made as he became increasingly entangled in Harrington's corrupt web. Elliot's phone rang again. Monica, Vega calling back. He stepped away to take the call, returning a few minutes later with a thoughtful expression. Nathan's made a full confession, he informed us. He's implicated Harrington, Conrad Wilson, Derek, and several others. But he's still insisting on speaking with you, Rebecca. He says there's context you deserve to hear directly from him. I looked around at the supportive faces surrounding me. Zoe, Ryan, Gabby, Elliot. All people who had stood by me through this nightmare. They had helped me uncover the truth, piece by painful piece. Did I owe Nathan the chance to explain his version of events? Or would that merely provide him another opportunity to manipulate me? I'll talk to him, I decided finally. But not alone. I want it recorded, and I want Monica present. Elliot nodded. I'll arrange it. He's still at the district attorney's office. An hour later, I sat across from Nathan in a small conference room at the DA's building. He looked exhausted, his usual polished appearance completely abandoned. Monica sat at the end of the table, a recording device between us. You have 15 minutes, Mr. Martinez, Monica said crisply. Ms. Martinez has agreed to hear you out as a courtesy, not as an obligation. Nathan nodded, his eyes fixed on me. Thank you for coming, Becca. Say what you need to say, Nathan, I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. He took a deep breath. You've discovered most of it already. Project Renaissance, the 3 development zones, the conservation easement fraud. What you don't know is how it started, or why I structured the Martinez Family Trust the way I did. I'm listening, I said, keeping my expression neutral. A year and a half ago, I was approached by Conrad Wilson about acquiring properties in Oak Meadows. It seemed straightforward at first, standard real estate investment. I brought Derek in because we'd worked well together in the past. Nathan paused, collecting his thoughts. But as we started working on it, I discovered that Wilson and Harrington had much bigger plans that began to make me uncomfortable. The casino, I supplied. Yes, eventually. But even before that, their methods were questionable. They wanted to use pressure tactics on homeowners, exploit zoning loopholes, bend rules wherever possible. I told myself it was just aggressive business. But deep down, I knew it was crossing lines. Yet you continued, I pointed out. Nathan nodded, shame flickering across his face. I did. The potential profits were enormous, and by then, I was already implicated in some of their earlier maneuvers. But I tried to create a firewall to separate my personal life from their schemes. By setting up the Martinez family trust with me as beneficiary, I guessed. Exactly. I wanted to ensure that whatever happened with Wilson and Harrington, you would be financially protected. The trust was irrevocable. They couldn't touch those assets, and neither could I if things went south. And the farmhouse? Was that part of your protection plan too? I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. Nathan winced. Initially, yes. I knew you'd always wanted a place in the country. When Wilson identified that area for development, I saw an opportunity to secure the centerpiece property through you, keeping it safe from their more aggressive plans. I convinced myself I was being clever, looking out for both our interests while playing along with their scheme. You manipulated me, I said flatly. Yes, he admitted. I orchestrated your discovery of the property. But what I didn't manipulate was your genuine connection to it. The joy in your eyes when you first saw that farmhouse. That was real, Becca. And when did you decide to sell our home and divorce me? I asked, cutting through his attempt at sentimentality. Was that part of your protection plan too? Nathan's expression hardened. No. That came later, when Harrington decided I should run for city council to help push through the zoning changes. He made it clear that my political viability depended on having the right partner. Someone with connections to his office, someone already familiar with the development plans. Amanda, I supplied. Yes, I resisted initially, told them I wasn't interested in politics, that my marriage wasn't negotiable. That's when the pressure started. Subtle at first. Comments about how you might react if you discovered what I'd been involved in. Insinuations about potential legal consequences. They threatened you using me, I realized. Nathan nodded grimly. Harrington made it very clear. Either I played my part exactly as scripted, including the political marriage to Amanda, or they would ensure that both of us faced consequences for the Oak Meadows acquisitions. By then, I'd signed enough documents, attended enough meetings that I was thoroughly implicated. So you decided sacrificing our marriage was the lesser evil, I summarized, my voice cold. I convinced myself it was the only way to contain the damage, Nathan corrected. With the trust in place, you'd be financially secure. With the farmhouse in your name, you'd have a home they couldn't touch. And with me taking the public role in the scheme, any potential fallout would land primarily on me, not you. How noble, I said sarcastically. You betrayed me to protect me. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Becca, Nathan said quietly. What I did was unforgivable, regardless of my reasoning. I'm simply telling you the truth you deserve to know. I made terrible choices, compromising my integrity bit by bit until I could hardly recognize myself anymore. Monica checked her watch. 5 minutes remaining, Mr. Martinez. Nathan leaned forward, his voice taking on a greater urgency. There's one more thing you need to know. The house. Our house that I sold. There was a reason beyond just needing capital. What reason? Harrington was having it watched. After I began showing reluctance about the political plan, he assigned someone to monitor our comings and goings. I found surveillance equipment in the garden shed about 2 months ago. They were gathering leverage, looking for anything they could use. I felt a chill run down my spine. You sold the house because it was under surveillance? Partly. I knew I needed to get you away from their direct observation. The condo downtown offered better security and was harder to monitor. Nathan ran a hand through his disheveled hair. It sounds paranoid, I know, but these people, Harrington, Wilson, they play hardball. When millions are at stake, ordinary rules don't apply. Why didn't you just tell me the truth? I asked, the question that had haunted me from the beginning. Why not trust me to handle it? Nathan's expression reflected genuine regret. Because I was ashamed. Because each compromise had led to another, until I was in so deep I couldn't see a way out that didn't destroy everything. And because I thought I could fix it on my own, find a solution that would satisfy Harrington while still protecting what mattered. And what mattered, Nathan? I asked softly. What was worth all this deception? You, he said simply. Us, the life we'd built. I know it doesn't make sense given my actions, but in my twisted logic, I thought I was preserving a future for us, one where we'd be financially secure and free from Harrington's influence. By divorcing me and marrying someone else, I reminded him pointedly. The divorce was real, Nathan acknowledged. The remarriage was not. Amanda and I had a different agreement than what Harrington believed. Once the development plans were secured and the political objectives achieved, she would have her own financial independence, and he trailed off. You what? I told myself I'd find a way back to you, he finished quietly. Delusional, I know, but it was the fantasy I clung to while everything else crumbled. Monica cleared her throat. Time's up, Mr. Martinez. Nathan nodded, but his eyes remained fixed on mine. I'm not asking you to forgive me, Rebecca. I'm not even asking you to believe me. I just wanted you to know that despite everything, despite my terrible choices and inexcusable betrayals, what we had was real. And the farmhouse? It truly is yours, free and clear. One thing I did right in a sea of wrongs. As I stood to leave, Nathan added one final comment. The passcode to the safe in my office is your birthday. Inside, you'll find documentation of everything I've told you today, including records of the surveillance Harrington ordered. It might help with your legal position going forward. Thank you for that, at least, I said, finding it difficult to reconcile this seemingly remorseful man with the calculating husband who had betrayed me so thoroughly. Outside the conference room, Elliot was waiting. How did it go? He asked, concern evident in his expression. Confusing, I admitted. He had explanations for everything, some of them almost rational in a twisted way. He claims he was trying to protect me even while betraying me. Classic manipulation, Elliot suggested gently. Maybe, I acknowledged. Or maybe the truth is just more complicated than I wanted it to be. Either way, it doesn't change the facts, or my decision to divorce him. 3 weeks later, I stood on the porch of my farmhouse, my actual farmhouse, legally mine without qualification or complication. The autumn leaves had turned brilliant shades of red and gold, the apple orchard ripe for harvesting. Zoe and Ryan had helped me furnish the place properly, turning the sparse rooms into a genuine home. The investigation into Harrington, Wilson, and their associates had expanded beyond Oak Ridge, uncovering corruption in 3 neighboring counties. Nathan had indeed provided valuable testimony, resulting in his plea deal. No prison time, but significant financial penalties and 5 years probation. Derek hadn't fared as well, facing charges of wire fraud and money laundering that would likely result in jail time. As for the properties surrounding my farmhouse, they had been seized as part of the investigation and would eventually be sold at public auction. Elliot had suggested I consider purchasing some of the adjacent land when that happened, expanding my little sanctuary while ensuring it remained protected from future development. My divorce from Nathan was proceeding smoothly, the financial aspect surprisingly straightforward thanks to the trust he had established. Despite everything, he had indeed protected my economic interests, a small mercy in the wreckage of our marriage. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. I opened it to find Vanessa Phillips standing on my porch, looking more relaxed than I'd ever seen her. Her pregnancy was beginning to show, a small bump visible beneath her casual sweater. "Hope I'm not intruding," she said with a tentative smile. "I was driving by and thought I'd stop in to see how you're doing." "Not at all," I assured her, inviting her inside. "Can I offer you some tea? Coffee?" "Tea would be wonderful," she said, following me to the kitchen. "This place is lovely, Rebecca. So peaceful." "It is," I agreed, putting the kettle on. "How are you holding up with everything?" Vanessa sighed, settling onto a stool at the kitchen island. "One day at a time. The divorce proceedings are messy, but my lawyer thinks Derek's legal troubles will work in my favor, and the baby gives me something positive to focus on." "I'm glad," I said sincerely. "You deserve a fresh start." "So do you," she replied, glancing around the cozy kitchen. "Have you decided what you're going to do next? Professionally, I mean." It was a question I'd been pondering myself. My position at Crosstech was secure. My boss had been incredibly understanding about my extended absence, but I found myself considering other possibilities. "I'm thinking about starting my own consulting firm," I admitted, "helping small businesses with strategic planning and growth management. After everything that's happened, I've realized how many people get caught in bad deals simply because they lack the right guidance." Vanessa nodded approvingly. "You'd be excellent at that. And speaking of new ventures, I wanted to run something by you." She hesitated, then continued. "A group of local attorneys and business leaders is forming a community development council. Legitimate, transparent, focused on ethical growth that actually benefits residents. They've asked me to join, and I suggested they reach out to you as well." "Me? Why?" "Because you understand both sides, corporate strategy and the importance of community protection. Plus, after the Harrington scandal, Oak Ridge needs leadership people can trust. You stood up against corruption even when it came from your own husband. That kind of integrity is exactly what's needed." I hadn't considered public service before, but there was something appealing about helping shape Oak Ridge's future in a positive way. "I'd be interested in hearing more," I said honestly. "Wonderful," Vanessa smiled. "There's a meeting next Tuesday at Riverfront Coffee. No pressure, just an exploratory conversation." As we sipped our tea, discussing possibilities for Oak Ridge's future, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: genuine hope. The betrayals and manipulations that had characterized the past year couldn't be erased, but they didn't have to define what came next. Later, after Vanessa had left, I walked through the orchard, picking a few late-season apples as the sun began to set. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number, the same one that had provided key information during the investigation. "Project Renaissance officially dead. Harrington taking plea deal. You won. Farmhouse safe forever now. Goodbye. And good luck." Amanda's final message, presumably before she disappeared to whatever new life her cooperation with authorities had secured for her. I didn't respond, having nothing left to say to the woman who had been both instrumental in my husband's betrayal and partially responsible for exposing the larger corruption. As dusk settled over the orchard, I made a decision. This property, originally meant to be a pawn in someone else's game, would instead become the foundation of my new beginning. Not a weekend retreat or a second home, but my primary residence. A place chosen by me, for me, regardless of how I'd been led to it. The next morning, I called a local contractor about renovating the farmhouse kitchen, something I'd wanted to do since first seeing the property. As we discussed options, he mentioned that several neighboring parcels might soon be available. "The conservation easement on the creek ensures this whole area will stay rural," he explained. "Perfect for someone looking for privacy and natural beauty." "That sounds ideal," I agreed, a plan forming in my mind. If I could acquire some of the surrounding land, I could create something truly special. Perhaps an agricultural education center using part of the orchard, or a retreat space for women rebuilding their lives after difficult transitions. Later that week, as I reviewed potential designs for the renovation, a letter arrived from Nathan. For a moment, I considered returning it unopened, but curiosity won out. Inside was a single page. Rebecca. By now, the trust assets should have fully transferred to your control. Use them however you see fit. They were always meant for you, regardless of our personal situation. I know words are inadequate after everything that's happened, but I want you to know that the farmhouse was the one true thing in all of this. I may have orchestrated your finding it, but your connection to that land was genuine from the first moment. In a perverse way, it might be the only honest gift I ever gave you, a place that truly reflects who you are and what you value. I'm leaving Oak Ridge next month after the final depositions. I won't contact you again unless there's something related to the legal proceedings that you need to know. You deserve the space to build whatever comes next without reminders of the past. Take care of yourself, Nathan. I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer, neither rejecting nor embracing its sentiments. Nathan's words, like everything else, about our relationship, existed in that complicated space between truth and manipulation. Perhaps someday I'd have clarity about what parts of our marriage had been genuine and what parts had been calculated. For now, it was enough to focus on the future I was building. One decision, one renovation, 1 acre at a time. 6 months later, the farmhouse transformation was complete. The kitchen now featured warm cherry cabinets and soapstone counters. The master suite had been expanded to include a home office overlooking the orchard, and the barn had been converted into a multi-purpose space for the community workshops I'd begun hosting. I'd successfully purchased 2 adjacent parcels at auction, expanding my property to include the protected wetland area, now officially designated as a conservation easement in perpetuity. The Martinez family trust assets had indeed transferred to my control, providing financial security that allowed me to launch my consulting business on my own terms. Zoe had become my first official client, seeking guidance on expanding her design firm beyond Oak Ridge. Ryan visited regularly, helping me establish security systems and technological infrastructure for both the house and my business. Vanessa, now visibly pregnant, had become an unexpected friend and ally on the Community Development Council where we both served. On a crisp spring morning, I stood on my porch, coffee in hand, watching the sun rise over the orchard that was beginning to bloom with delicate pink and white blossoms. A year ago, I'd discovered my husband had sold our home without telling me, setting in motion a cascade of revelations and betrayals that had shattered the life I thought I knew. Yet here I stood on the porch of a different home, one that was unquestionably mine. A property that had been meant as a pawn in someone else's game had instead become the foundation of my independence. The very scheme designed to exploit me had, ironically, led to my emancipation. The farmhouse that Nathan had guided me to discover had indeed changed my life, just not in the way he or his conspirators had intended. Instead of being a piece in their development puzzle, it had become the centerpiece of my reinvention, a home, a business headquarters, a community resource, and most importantly, tangible proof that endings often contain the seeds of new beginnings. I sipped my coffee and smiled at the synchronicity of it all. Nathan had sold our home while I was at work, not knowing I had already bought another one in my name alone. The betrayal had been real, the pain genuine, but the outcome had ultimately been mine to determine. In trying to control my future, Nathan had inadvertently given me the tools to create one entirely my own. The orchard stretched before me, trees, heavy with promise. I had plans for that harvest, just as I had plans for everything else that now lay within my control. The house keys in my pocket were mine alone, the property deed bore only my name, and the future unfolding before me was finally, authentically, exclusively mine to shape. Up next, You've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.